In this episode of Cosmic Sponge, scientists in Ukraine develop new methods for tracking meteors and UFOs. Stephen gives us a history lesson on a monarch's fascination with the UFO phenomena, revealing a palace room dedicated to his research. New techniques in material science lead to manufacturing at a microscopic level. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb acquires funding to search the ocean floor for a suspected interstellar object, which might actually be an artifact from another world. The CIA invests funds into reviving extinct species, having learned nothing from Jurassic Park. And for our main topic, we explore an incident at O'Hare International Airport where a UFO was observed by ground crew, pilots, and passengers with just enough time left over for Stephen's language lessons.
That proposed that the interstellar object that passed through our solar system...
What's it called?
Oumuamua. Is that it?
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua. I was a lot closer this time.
You were a lot closer.
We talk about this like every episode.
I know, you need a phonetic spelling of it.
Oumuamua. I don't know why I can't remember that. Welcome to Cosmic Sponge, the podcast where we discuss weird wonders in the world. I'm Stephen Hawk.
And I'm Jimmy Coe.
In this episode, we are looking into the 2006 UFO sighting at O'Hare International Airport. This is a pretty famous sighting. UFO researchers consider this one of the most credible sightings. Before we get into that, we'll take care of a few little things here. First of all, let me apologize for the last episode taking so long to come out, but I caught COVID, just to make a long story short, and was pretty sick for about a week. And in fact, right before we recorded that last episode, I'm trying to think, it was right before Jimmy and I were going to Mothman, and I ended up having to cancel my travel plans. I was pretty sick, but Jimmy, I know you went.
Well, I was still recovering from COVID. Now, to be clear, before anybody starts yelling at me, my doctor gave me the okay to go. He went and said, yeah, you're past the, the contagious period of this thing. You'll be fine. But I was pretty run down, so we didn't spend a lot of time at Mothman. We did go down. I mean, we did spend some time, but I had hoped to spend, like 6 hours down there or something like that. We went both days, both Saturday and Sunday. Actually, we got down there on Friday. So on Friday we went. They were still setting things up. There wasn't any crowds. We were able to get into the Mothman Museum, which was a hoot, and just walked right in. Paid, I think it was like $10 a person, something like that.
Yeah, I've been there. I haven't been there during the festival, but I've been there.
Right. Well, it's good to go on Friday before the festival starts because let me tell you, the lines are impressive. And we got our picture taken with Mothman. There was some people out there taking their picture, but just like 5-6 people. And we had some really nice person come over and took a picture of Elizabeth and I under Mothman. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Then we went and got our room. Now, we rented an Airbnb over in Gallipolis. And I had to look up how to pronounce that because I was saying it's something like Gallipolis or something like that. I don't know.
Galapagos.
Galapagos, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think it's how I was pronouncing it during the Mothman episode, yeah.
Yeah, so it's Gallipolis. And I forgot, the history of it. I did read a little bit of the history of that.
Sounds Greek.
Town. It does.
Gallipolis.
It probably is, but I don't remember. We stayed over there. It was really nice. I took my one wheel down and one wheeled around the town a little bit. That was a hoot.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, so we went over. There was a ton of people. It was packed. They have a really nice rail trail kind of set up right on the river. And then they have an amphitheater down there. And they had people playing. They had this hit country band that played, that played the Eurythmics. It was
really?
the weirdest sounding version of Sweet Dreams I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And there were a ton of vendors just everywhere. Lots of really cool stuff. And I picked up a couple of posters from the Mothman Museum, which I'm going to frame and get ready for, I think, an October giveaway. Maybe I'll get that set up and we'll start that next week.
Did you get to meet anyone of interest?
Now, the lines to meet everybody was really long. There was a couple of people there. Now, people I don't follow, but have been on like the History Channel or have their own little social media presence at the higher echelons, I guess. Mostly around Bigfoot, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a couple of folks there. Handed out some cards and stickers to various people, which was a lot of fun. I think it was a pretty big success. So we went back the next day, and it wasn't as crowded, but it was still pretty crowded. People still coming in. The lines were getting long by the time we left because we got there pretty early. Elizabeth wanted to pick up some Mothman cookies for the folks at work.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say it's a big success. It might be something we'd want to, if we want to do that, I don't know. I don't know how a podcast would do down there. There were no podcasters that I saw. Didn't seem like the vibe for a podcast. But maybe we'd be the first.
Yeah, Jimmy and I had planned to maybe even do an episode at the festival, record, maybe do some live interviews with some people. If we could, I've never been there during a festival. You've been to more of those kind of things than I have. Of course, where I got sick, I was laid up in the bed while you were having fun at the Mothman. And what's funny is my wife has been wanting to go for something like 4 years. I think it was at least 3 years, because after my son and I stopped there on our way to Cleveland one time, my wife was like, I really want to go there. I want to go during the festival. So the next year was 2020. They canceled the festival, and then they canceled it again last year. And so we're all set to go to it this year, and then I got sick. And Mary got it too. Mary got the COVID too.
Oh, she did?
It didn't affect her very bad. She was kind of sinusy and had fatigue maybe one day, but she may have not even tested had I not been sick. It just was really mild for her.
She's got that Italian immune system. They use the Sicilian way to get rid of it.
Yeah, something like. Let's move on to some news stories. What have you been rounding up over the past couple of weeks?
So there's a war going on in Ukraine. But while the war is going on, scientists are still doing their work in Ukraine. There is an observatory which has been noticing some UAP activity. They wrote a report here recently, which is currently undergoing peer review. And they have calibrated 2 different sets of optics to track these things. They've labeled them in 2 categories, light and dark, and they're calling them cosmics and phantoms. That's the language they're using in their report. The cosmics are luminous objects that are brighter than the background sky, and they're designated the different types of activity they're seeing out of these objects. They label them as birds, such as swift, falcon, and eagle. They've been observed flying solo as well as in squadrons. The phantoms, in contrast, are dark objects, usually appearing completely black as if absorbing all light that falls onto them. And by comparing observations from the 2 participating observatories, the researchers estimate that the phantoms range from 10 to 40 feet wide and can travel at speeds of up to 33,000 miles per hour. For comparison, an intercontinental ballistic missile can reach speeds of up to 15,000 miles per hour.
Yeah, man, that's moving. What is the description of the objects? Any kind of shapes or anything that they, besides this light and dark?
No, I haven't seen anything specific to the shapes of them. I think in another article I'd read previously, because we may have mentioned this in one of our previous episodes a couple weeks ago. So an ODNI report says that there are possible explanations for this UAP activity, which could include airborne clutter, balloons, atmospheric phenomena. But in the case of what's happening in Ukraine, they say it's possible that some of the UAPs, they're not saying all of them, but some of them are technologies deployed by China, Russia, and other nations or non-governmental entities. Now, I don't know any of those governments that have craft that can travel at, 33,000 miles per hour.
Now, I'm curious how they estimated those speeds. These are just visual sightings, or are these any kind of radar reports on these things?
So they're shot from 2 different weather stations, one in Kiev and one in Verakiva, which is a village about 75 miles to the south. They cannot scientifically be identified as known natural phenomena, according to the report. They're using some optics that are calibrated specifically to this. Now, they don't specify in this article I'm reading, but I do know in that report that they do specify details about how they're capturing the imagery, what equipment they're using, what the settings are for the equipment. And this brings me to an interesting point about SkyHub. Now, we talked about SkyHub before, I think, last year, and I don't remember the specific episode we talked about it, but SkyHub is now a closed-down project that originally was set up to make both software and hardware available to the general public so that you could link together up to 150,000 different units to get 100% coverage of the night sky. It would collect all of the data from all these different units and start producing a large data set for it that could be mined and that you could apply AI algorithms and machine learning algorithms to it. You can immediately rule out knowns like satellites and airplanes and other things that have identity in the skies. And then everything that's left over, you can then start filtering that out and determine, well, based on its movement, it's most likely airborne clutter, a balloon, but this thing over here, what is it? And then you could track it across the sky, great distances, with these 150,000 things. Now, SkyHub went defunct in 2021, but it was taken over by an Austrian nonprofit, which is now called sky360.org. And you can go there and you can buy the casing unit for all of the equipment. And they're making the equipment available, a list of equipment that will be available over the counter. So all the equipment they're utilizing, something that anybody can get online and buy pretty easily. And then you put it in this external weathered housing and then set it up, connect it to the internet, and then all the information will be collected into a cloud system which they're currently working on. Now, the software that's being utilized is the software from the SkyHub project, but they are updating it to another version of software, which will be under the Sky360 program, and it'll be an improvement from the SkyHub. So things like this can be utilized even by people like at these observatories in Kiev, and possibly we'll start getting some interesting data and information on what exactly is happening in our skies that otherwise might not be as easily explained.
You always think about these UFO sightings. The average witness will say, this UFO came up and then it took off over the horizon and I lost sight of it. If everyone was linked, or you had several people linked all around the globe, when it took off down the horizon, maybe somebody could track it to wherever it went after that, or it shot up into space or went under the ocean or whatever. It would just be neat to be able to track these true UAPs. But back on the Ukraine thing, I'm wondering how many of these UFOs probably are technology, such as drones. There's been a lot of new electronic gizmos and small things and stuff deployed all over this battlefield. Makes one wonder.
Yeah, both Ukraine, the Ukraine government and our government have not said anything about extraterrestrials. Matter of fact, they have said that it's very likely that the majority, if not all of these objects, are military in nature.
Right. On the other hand, maybe ET's checking out the war. You know?
Yeah, because, I mean, they are interested in nuclear war, and there has been some loose lips on that front lately, which makes me nervous.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what Putin's up to or what he thinks he's going to do.
He's a little feller. We were looking it up last night. He's little. He's like 5'6". I think he's got a Napoleon complex. Napoleon was taller than him. Napoleon's like 5'10", right?
Yeah. It's I don't know how that rumor ever got started, but I think Napoleon was. I don't remember his height, but I know he was average height for the time, or maybe even a little above average. But everyone always, growing up, everyone talked about Napoleon being kind of short or whatever. I don't know where that got started.
Yeah, you never see pictures of Putin with people around him that are tall. It's always little people, really little people, like dwarfs. He stands around a bunch of dwarfs, and but it's not dwarfs. They like to be called little people or something.
Little people.
Little people.
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm not savvy when it comes to etiquette on
Yeah, you're
front.
very politically incorrect.
I am, mainly because I'm not very bright.
Yeah, and we're old.
That's true, too. I mean, it's a different generation, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't make it right, but it sort of explains the problem.
There you go. I have a story that and of course, since we've recorded last time, sadly, Queen Elizabeth II passed away at the age of 96. Now, her husband, Prince Philip, passed away in April of 2021, and he was 99.
Yeah, my eyelids are getting heavy. I mean, I feel like I'm back in school or history class or something. Okay. So 2 old people died. I got you. Continue.
It's terrible, man. But as you may or may not know, Prince Philip was avidly interested in UFOs.
Hey, this is going to not surprise you at all, but I didn't know that.
He had his own investigation going on. This came out maybe after his death, but I saw something relatively recently that he had been interested in UFOs for quite a while. I think he had a special room in the palace that had the cork board with all the different clippings.
No way.
Yeah. Very, very much into this. He would, sometimes during dinners, he would try to have himself seated near like a particular general or somebody just to kind of pick their brain about what's going on or have discussions about it.
Wow.
Our good friend, Nick Pope, if you recall, he's English. He was in charge of the UFO sightings in the Ministry of Defense, right?
Yep. Yeah, everybody knows old Nick.
Nick Pope likes to come out and make some public statements about many things UFO related. However, he said there's many people right now asking the royal family for his information. They said the royal family is now facing calls for Prince Philip's UFO investigation to be made public. Previously, the work had remained secret during the entire reign of the Queen. Philip kept an eye on developments, subscribed to UFO magazines and newsletters, and had witnesses interviewed. He also claimed Philip's interest in the subject was deliberately kept under wraps during the reign of the late monarch, as it would have caused a stir. But this information did become public, I know, at least a year ago or more. It had become well known that Prince Philip was very, very interested in UFOs.
You know there's a room in that palace that looks like it came out of an episode of Hoarders, and it's got yarn strapped across the wall, all these different photographs and places in the world. Man, that would
be fascinating.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, if they published a book about Prince Philip's interest in UFOs and the information that he gathered, I mean, it would be a bestseller. I would be interested in knowing what he discovered because, I mean, although not part of the Ministry of Defense, I mean, I'm not sure how the whole monarchy works, but it doesn't seem like they really wield a whole lot of authority. More figureheads. I don't know. I'm not English, so.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
I mean, I think Parliament and really holds the power in the UK as far as I can gather. So I don't know how much information Prince Philip would have been privy to, but still much more information than I think the average British citizen.
Yeah, he'd have access to. Oh, for sure. I mean, he knew 007. He knew Sean Connery.
and especially he would have access to people, within the government and stuff to ask his questions. So yeah, I think it would be fascinating. I hope they do release that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that could be its own, the British X-Files. The truth is out there.
Yeah, the truth is out there.
That's a terrible accent. How would a British accent? Oh, the truth is out there.
There you go. The old British sailor.
Yeah.
The truth is out there.
That sounds like a Hobbit.
All right. What do you got?
So a team of physicists has created a way to self-assemble particles. And now this is a new advance that offers promise for building complex or innovative materials at a microscopic level.
Yeah. I saw something on this.
Yeah, so this made me think of the interview with Gary Nolan. Now, he's mentioned on that the documentary We Love that Jamie Foxx put out, which was The Phenomenon. Gary Nolan is I think he's a biologist, actually. But he also does material science, and he's no slouch intellectually. He has a ton of patents. And he is interested in some of this scientifically, taking a scientific approach to some of these things. And some of the materials that he received from Jacques Vallée that he analyzed appeared as if they may have been constructed at this microscopic level. So it looks like now we have this technology, or we're on the precipice of this technology, where we might be able to do something similar. Now, the breakthrough was reported in Nature, the journal. What they do is they use droplets of oil immersed in water and use them in a self-assembly of photomeres, which are unique shapes that can be theoretically predicted from the sequence of droplet interactions. This whole approach mimics what happens biologically using protein folding and RNA using colloids. Now, all of that stuff I just said is basically fancy talk for we're mimicking biology with this technique in order to do this microscopic level of building alloys, materials. It's hard to say what we'll be able to develop with this, but it's pretty exciting stuff.
I remember Gary Nolan from Stanford University, who you're talking about, had that device that UFO investigator Jacques Vallée brought in, supposedly pieces of a crashed flying saucer. Mm-hmm. And he took this relatively new piece of technology, which I think he helped develop. Am I wrong in that?
I'm not sure.
Did he help develop?
I think so.
Leave that out.
Yeah.
But he brought this in. This is a very unique piece of equipment that can look at material on the atomic level. And that's what he found very intriguing. He's saying these materials, it's not that we couldn't do it, but why would you do it? We have no idea why, like some of these isotopes of magnesium were very odd. With this technology, I do remember the technology you're talking about now. Gary Nolan said he was very interested in trying to assemble these materials himself to try and determine what the characteristics of it would be. Why would you have magnesium isotope that doesn't exist in nature? Why would you create that? What's the property here? Who knows? Anti-gravity. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that's very interesting that now it looks like we're approaching the ability to be able to assemble some of these materials. I just hope somebody does it, and let's find out what they do. It could be some real breakthroughs in technology.
Yeah.
If they indeed did come from a flying saucer, who knows?
Scientists, you gotta love them.
So Avi Loeb is back in the news. Avi Loeb, if you recall, is the Harvard astronomer that proposed that the interstellar object that passed through our solar system...
What's it called?
Oumuamua? Is that it?
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua. I was a lot closer this time.
You were a lot closer.
Oumuamua. I need to put like a sticky note up,
with a phonetic.
We talk about this like every episode.
I know you need a phonetic spelling of it.
Amua. I mean, I would just put an A with like a moo and an A, Amua, and then mua.
Yeah.
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua. I don't know why I can't remember that, but anyway, the interstellar object Oumuamua or Maui or whatever. Avi Loeb proposed and says he has good evidence that this was perhaps an alien space probe. I reported on our last episode that evidence had been uncovered. A meteorite that had landed in the ocean was an interstellar object, and that he was and some others are privately funding an expedition to try and recover it, because he's saying, yes, it's probably just a meteor, but what if it's not? What if it's pieces of an alien probe? Well, now there's a second object he also wants to investigate. They said that this second object off the coast of Portugal hit the Earth March 9th, 2017, is an additional interstellar object candidate, and they creatively call it Interstellar Meteor 2. There was a paper, but it has not been peer-reviewed yet, that they're basing this information on. Avi says, we don't have a large enough sample to say how much stronger interstellar objects are than solar system objects, but we can say they are stronger. The odds of randomly drawing two objects in the top 3 out of 273 is 1 in 10,000. And when we look at specific numbers relative to the distribution of objects, we find that the Gaussian odds are more like 1 in a million. This makes Interstellar Meteor 2 an outlier in material strength. To us, it means that the source is different from planetary systems like our solar system. And see, this Oumuamua was spotted in 2017 as well. So to be clear, Avi Loeb is saying, I'm not saying that this is definitely an interstellar probe that maybe jettisoned a couple of landers, but what if it is? Let's go look at it. It's probably just a rock, but there's some strange characteristics about this.
It could be a pod, and it's
very curious.
Pouring out spores and causing global warming so that they could terraform our planet to prepare it for the invasion.
Yeah, this is most definitely a horror movie in the making. And then here's Avi Loeb, the one that actually knows, him and his colleagues that know the truth and unleashes some terror on the world.
I'm starting my screenplay tonight. I'm going to start writing.
Right.
Yeah. I'm keeping the name of Muamua in my screenplay, though.
Muamua. Call it Muamua.
A Woomba Toomba.
Or whatever I decide to come up with next time we do this story on Avi Loeb.
Yeah. I think it's cool.
You got anything else?
I do not.
Okay.
You got anything else?
I got one more story I just want to touch on briefly before we move on to tonight's main topic. I know we're doing a lot of news tonight, but it has been a while since we've gotten together, and there's just been some pretty neat stories. So as soon as I read the headline, I thought of your CIA cat.
Yeah, okay, this is going to be good.
Could you brief listeners what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so back in the 1960s, I believe, the CIA started a program called Acoustic Kitty, where they took a cat and then surgically implanted antennas and recording listening devices into the cat, and then tried to train the cat to approach subjects and then just hang around looking completely normal while it recorded conversations amongst diplomats and officials of other countries in an attempt to, gather information. Now, when they went for the very first test case out in the field, they released the cat. The cat was supposed to go across a street into a park where two subjects were communicating back and forth and record the information. A few seconds after releasing the cat was run over by a taxi, and the program was terminated at that point.
I'm always like, how much did that cost to develop this cat? Probably try to train it and everything, and it runs out in the road and gets hit by it was probably a Russian taxi cab driver too.
It was Boris.
Yeah.
Yes,
Run
Natasha.
over the cat.
Yes, Natasha.
Cat is a spy.
I thought Moose was spy. So what do we got that's anything like Acoustic Kitty?
The CIA,
of course,
looks as if they have invested in woolly mammoth resurrection technology through its venture capital firm.
What the hell? What's the point of that? Are they going to have a recording device inserted into a mammoth?
You ask me, man.
It's going to be a little conspicuous.
And it's been revealed that the CIA has recently or has always been pursuing technologies related to that are involved in DNA sequencing and, things like CRISPR, right?
Yeah.
The genetic sequencing device. Colossal Biosciences is a biotechnology firm with headquarters in Dallas. And in QTEL, its new investor is registered as a nonprofit venture capital firm funded by the CIA. On its surface, the group funds technology startups with the potential to safeguard national security. In addition to its long-standing pursuit of intelligence and weapons technology, the CIA has lately displayed an increased interest in biotechnology and particularly DNA sequencing. Colossal claims it plans to employ cutting-edge genetic sequencing CRISPR to bring back two extinct creatures, including the gigantic Ice Age mammoth and the Tasmanian tiger. We did an episode on that. Medium-sized marsupial that became extinct back in the 1930s. So, what do you think? CIA is going to help raise a woolly mammoth and an extinct marsupial. That's something about that just disturbs me. The CIA being involved with CRISPR.
Yeah, I'm looking at
being involved with genetic sequencing in general. You wonder, what's the end game here?
Yeah. So the mission statement from the CIA is, at its core, our mission is to gather and share intelligence to protect our nation from threats. Our highest principles guide our vision and all that we do: integrity, service, excellence, courage, teamwork, and stewardship. So, yeah, I don't see anything in there that says bringing Jurassic Park from the screen into your backyard.
Yeah, I know. It's a little concerning. But anyway, more to come, maybe.
Well,
maybe they're going to plant a giant microphone on the mammoth and go spy. They'll plant them in Siberia or something and spy on some.
Well, you have more room to work with than a cat.
And don't have to worry about it getting run over by a taxi cab. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, you ever see
if the cab hits it, right? It's fine.
Well, that cat had to be pretty weird looking, because have you ever seen tape recorders from the 1960s? They're reel to reel. They're about the size of a desk.
It probably had a backpack on it, with like his fur on it.
It looked like a camel.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. Let us move on to tonight's main topic. And by the way, listeners, all those stories are on our Facebook page. Look for Cosmic Sponge on Facebook or join our Facebook group called Cosmic Sponge Theorists. All of these stories are posted there along with all the details. And there's plenty of other stories that we like to post from time to time throughout the week. Interesting stories on UFOs, Bigfoot, fringe science, or real science. We like it all. And while you're at it, check out Jimmy's Instagram page. I need to get caught up. I usually try to catch up right before the episode. I know there's something good there because Mary was laughing. My wife was laughing at it. She told me I needed to check it out. So
I haven't posted in a couple of days, so I forget. What?
It's been a few days since I've checked it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, check out our Instagram. Jimmy does a lot of work on that. Please visit our webpage, cosmicsponge.com. There you can find the web store. You can find ways to support the show, including Patreon. And you can support us on Patreon either through patreon.com/cosmicsponge. But the easiest way is just to go to our webpage, cosmicsponge.com, and just click on the links there. If you do support us on Patreon, you will gain access to an additional show that we do called Weird Wonders. We would really appreciate that. And of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in every week and listening. We've seen a big growth over this past month, real huge spike. So thank you to everyone that's been passing the word and leaving reviews. And, don't forget to like and up thumb and do all that kind of stuff. All that stuff matters. It helps us grow the show. One of the best things you can do is just reach out and tell a friend or a coworker or colleague or an enemy or somebody you can't stand. It doesn't matter. Just tell somebody about Cosmic Sponge.
Russian taxi drivers.
Right. Our contact information is firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. All right, let's move on to tonight's main topic, the UFO incident at O'Hare International Airport. Jimmy?
Yeah?
I know you've done a little legwork on this one.
Such a dork.
How about getting us kicked off tonight?
All right, here we go. Dan Aykroyd put the phone to his ear waiting for Britney Spears to answer.
Is that real?
Yes. He had taken a break from shooting the latest episode of Out There with Dan Aykroyd, a passion project exploring the UFO phenomena and the paranormal. He had stepped away to grab a smoke and to have a quick chat with Britney. Standing on the sidewalk of a one-way New York City side street, he looked over and noticed a black Ford sedan parked nearby. Inside were two tall, angry, blank-faced men in suits staring at him. I don't know how they know they're angry and blank-faced, but, that's the way it was told to me.
Maybe just in their body language.
Could be. A moment later, he finished his call, turned back to find the car had vanished. 2 hours later, he received a call that the show had been canceled. 8 episodes of insider information on the UFO phenomena, including the final episode he was wrapping up, would never see the light of day. Since the Sci-Fi Channel owned the show, Aykroyd was prohibited from releasing any of the footage. Is it possible government agents got wind of some of the material Aykroyd was preparing to release and shut the whole thing down? Aykroyd is open about his belief in UFOs and has done quite a bit of research into the subject matter. And it's his fascinating with the unknown that ties him to tonight's story. In November of 2006, a UFO was seen by various ground crew and pilots at O'Hare International Airport. The sighting included photographs and possibly video footage rumored to be in the hands of Aykroyd. While several photographs of the incidents have surfaced, many, if not all of them, were revealed to be hoaxes. The video footage remains behind closed doors, possibly nestled between an Emmy from 1977 and a VHS tape of the 1993 cult classic Coneheads. Perhaps one day we may get to see the craft witnessed by the United employees at O'Hare back in 2006 after all. The Blue Brothers are getting a television series, and Belushi has been dead for over 40 years now, so I suppose anything is possible. Meanwhile, we'll just have to sit back and wait with our fingers crossed. Steve?
The Blues Brothers are really coming back?
They're doing a television series.
Who's doing it?
Well, I don't know. Aykroyd and Belushi's corpse. I just don't know. What are they? You can't replace Belushi.
You don't think it's going to be just a whole new reboot?
Oh, it'd be terrible.
Yeah, well.
You can't replace Aykroyd and Belushi.
That's never stopped Hollywood before.
That's true. They can't come up with new stuff. They're just not that clever these days.
So I guess Dan Aykroyd believes that his show was shut down because he was getting too close to the truth or something?
The Men in Black. Yeah, he's a bit paranoid, and I saw him on Joe Rogan, an interview with Joe Rogan. I didn't know how into the UFO phenomena in particular. Now, his grandfather, I want to say, conversed. I mean, this is long in his family, going way back. His grandfather conversed with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah, the author of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. So they've been interested in the paranormal and mysteries of the universe for a long time. It runs in his family. And it seems like he believes in just about everything. And he's very familiar with all of the cases we've done, for sure. And then I'm sure a lot of cases we've never heard of.
Yeah, I had seen him interviewed throughout the years. I think the first, I can't even tell you the movie, but he was playing it was in one of these heist movies or something, kind of a comedy. I can't think of the movie. He's looking through a paper and he just blurts out, "Cattle mutilations are up again," during the movie. And I'm thinking that's an ad-libbed line. And then I saw an interview later with the actress that played in that same movie. She's like, "Oh yeah, Dan believes in all that stuff." And that's the first time I'd heard about it. That was years and years ago.
Yeah.
And then through the years, I saw him just like an interview with Dan Aykroyd, and that's what it was about. It's about UFOs. That's probably 25 years ago, talking about UFOs and Bigfoot and, the whole gambit of whatever it is you want to call it.
The UFO, paranormal, I mean, just whatever. I mean, he's the crystal
the
skulls.
Of, extra special stuff. I don't know.
Sure.
But on to this particular sighting, O'Hare International Airport is the main international airport serving Chicago, Illinois. It is located on the city's northwest side, approximately 17 miles northwest of the Loop Business District. Operated by Chicago Department of Aviation, it covers 7,627 acres. It has nonstop flights to 242 destinations in North America, South America, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Oceania, and the North Atlantic region. So I guess it goes everywhere except Antarctica, sounds like.
Yeah.
O'Hare became famous during the Jet Age, holding the distinction as the world's busiest airport from 1963 to 1998. Today, it is the world's fourth busiest airport for passenger counts, serving 54 million passengers in 2021. In 2019, O'Hare had 919,704 aircraft movements, averaging 2,520 per day. So it is a very busy airport.
Yeah. You ever flown through O'Hare?
I have not. No.
It is, it's stressful. It's not like a least favorite or anything. It's middle of the road, but I mean, just because of its size and how busy it is, and it's a little bit run down. They may have spruced it up a little bit in recent years.
I don't think I've been through O'Hare.
Yeah, it's a pretty
the main hub airport I always end up in is
Atlanta
or Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah. Those are big for the South. Flying down that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like most of my business is in the South, so.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. You have a bit of an accent.
Yeah, right. What are you talking about? Bada bing!
Bada boom! Stupid. All right, so it's a big airport. So something like a UFO, how many people see this thing?
Right.
Well, that's the big question. So there is a report. It's about a 152-page report that was put out by the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena. That's NARCAP. And it's pretty thorough. It goes through the list of initial witnesses that they were able to compile. They don't release the names of the witnesses. They just label them A through, I believe, G is the number of witness they have in that report. A through I.
Can you describe what happened in this sighting?
Yeah, so the reason I'm starting out with the witnesses and giving you just the background on how they're labeled is because they step through it in an incremental way of who saw it first to who saw it last. And it starts with witness A, which was a ramp mechanic, and he was standing beside of a Boeing 737 outside of gate C-17. That gate was servicing United Airlines. The witness did not want his name revealed. Actually, none of these people wanted their names revealed. And there's reasons for that, obvious ones and ones which come out later that are specific to security for their jobs and worry that it might hamper their ability to hold a job there at the airport. So the earliest known witness was witness A. He was assisting with a pushback of a Boeing 737-500 from gate C-17. He was standing on the tarmac outside right next to the nose of the jet with his communication headset cable plugged into a connection port in the nose of the airplane. About 4:30 p.m., the witness said that he was compelled to look straight up for some reason and was startled to see a craft hovering silently. He then made a radio call over the headset to the airline's operations center to Sylvia, United Airlines Zone 5 control coordinator, who is responsible for 10 gates. He then told the cockpit crew inside of the airplane that was next to him about what he was looking at. One or both of the crew allegedly opened their side windows and looked up at the UAP. However, this couldn't be confirmed. Later, witness A said that he thought the object was between 500 and 1,000 feet directly above his gate. He was sure that the UAP was round and rotating pretty fast. He said the object shot off into the clouds about 2 minutes after he first saw it, and that it was about the same size as a quarter held up at arm's length. That's about 26 inches, just over 2-degree arc diameter. He estimated that between 10 and 15 people had seen the object directly around him. The cloud cover that day was 1,900 feet. The distance that it was observed from various witnesses was between that 1,000-foot mark and 1,600 feet. Some of the estimates that were done later, calculations that were done later based off of witnesses, places it between 20 and 40 feet in length.
Well, it's incredibly difficult when there's no other reference points to know how big something is. I mean, you may know that it's off in the distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference between 20 feet and 40 feet, that would be almost impossible. Something in the sky, a round object that you have no reference point. That's like if I see a small airplane in the sky, I know about how big that is because I've seen other small aircraft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's a big jet airplane, I know about how big that is because I've seen other big jet aircraft. But when it's a flying saucer, it's very difficult to say, just hovering there without any other reference points, it's very difficult to try and guess how large something like that would be.
That's true. So what they did is, and inside of the NARCAP report, they show a pretty significant discrepancy in size initially from just the, and what they're doing is they're using that arm's length out by a quarter and that ceiling height of the clouds being at 1,900 feet to come up with a range of how large the object must be given that information. So that gave them a pretty large size. But then there were observers that were observing the object from a distance away, and some of the observers were ex-Navy personnel or pilots and other people who were taking time out, and they were so fascinated by it that they were observing it at an angle in relationship to the tower at C-17. So I guess they had more information that was able to come up with that more accurate estimate of between 20 and 40 feet.
Okay. Well, and the source I have says witnesses described the object as completely silent, and the size estimates are 6 to 24 feet in diameter. So I guess different reports. Regardless of the estimated size, this was a flying saucer. Over gate C-17, it was an overcast day. The ceiling was 1,900 feet, right? You're saying?
Yeah. So clouds were at 1,900 feet.
Witnesses were able to see this object for up to 5 minutes. That's a very long observation time for a UFO. Witnesses also said, I don't think the object moved, right? It just hovered there.
That's correct.
And then when it did depart, it shot straight up very fast, left a hold in the cloud cover so that witnesses were able to see through the clouds. It was an overcast day. Witnesses were then able to see through the clouds and see blue sky for a few minutes afterwards until the clouds covered it back up again. And that's probably the most striking part of this, other than the number of witnesses.
So there's a lot of additional information in this NARCAP report. So witness B was the left cockpit seat, and witness C was in the right seat of one of the planes. It was
right. These are two pilots, right?
No, it's actually United Aviation Mechanics.
Oh, okay.
And it's a Boeing 737-500, and they're at gate C-17, talking on their company frequency about a circle or disc-shaped object hovering over the gate.
I think they were rolling this thing out.
That's right.
They were, yeah.
They were at the international ramp initially near D2, and they were moving to the United Service Center hangar on the north side of the airport. There are two different versions of it, slightly different. Witness B and Witness C gave slightly differing accounts, but not significantly so. But both say that it's a circle or disc-shaped object, not a cloud, an object, hovering over the gate. Witness B continued, at first we laughed to each other, and then the same pilot said again on the radio that it was about 700 feet AGL, or above ground level. The radio interrupted with chatter about the object, and the ATC, that's the air traffic controller, that was handling ground traffic, made a few smart comments about the alleged UFO sighting above C Terminal. According to Witness B, when they began to taxi the airplane to the west around Taxiway Alpha, approaching the United Concourse C on their right, radio communications with the inbound ground controller showed that they began their taxi at 3:57 and 30 seconds p.m. The probable taxi path of this United airplane is shown by a dashed line in Figure 4 in this NARCAP report, and it just shows that they were running right by the C Terminal and was in radio contact with inbound ground control for directions to their destination, which would have been United Maintenance 44. So what this tells us is that there were people communicating back and forth with the air traffic control about what they were seeing, and this is various people on the ground, from some of the maintenance staff to the ground crew to pilots in the area.
As far as we know, this dozen or so witnesses are the only ones that came forward to be interviewed or were willing to be interviewed. I mean, it's quite possible there were many more witnesses that just didn't come forward or didn't wish to take part in the investigation.
Yeah, it actually came out that additional witnesses viewed this from outside of the airport, driving up to the airport on one of the access roads. And there was an estimated, 3 dozen people or so. And of those 3 dozen people, about half a dozen of them were reported to have taken video or photographic footage, one using a digital camera. So where that information is, we don't know. Now, the interview was done with this person who has initials JH. And she is a 54-year-old female. She was brought up, her father, I guess, was in the Navy. She grew up around planes, very familiar with what was going on, and she was a journalist. So,
well, we know journalists don't make good observers.
Well, that's true. So she was sitting there observing this with her journalist instincts. So she's paying a lot of attention to what was going on around her. With the device, she immediately pulled over as soon as she could find a spot to park. Various people got out. Everybody was watching it. This will lead us to eventually be able to discount some of the explanations that the FAA gives for the event.
When word gets out, the Chicago Tribune published a story on this, and the FAA denied that there was any communication with United Airlines. United Airlines also denied any knowledge of this UFO, and that later turns out to be untrue. There was a lot of interest in this story whenever they published it initially, so they followed up on it and filed a Freedom of Information request with the government, and were able to find out later that actually, yes, the United Airlines and the FAA were communicating about this device or about this sighting. And we have exclusively here on Cosmic Sponge, we have obtained the audio recordings of the FAA and United Airlines communications.
Is it exclusive? I don't think it's exclusive.
Nah, well, I just, wanted to make it sound a lot cooler than it is.
Oh, it's exclusively.
It's not exclusive. Well, semi-exclusive. Semi-exclusive audio of the communication between United Airlines and two representatives eventually of the FAA discussing the UFO sighting. And we're going to play that now.
Air Tower, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave, it's Sue from United Tower.
Hey, Sue.
Hey, did you see a flying disc out by C-17?
Oh, don't even start, Sue.
No,
You're seeing flying discs.
well, that's what the pilot and the ramp guys are telling us. The C-17, they saw some flying disc above, and we can't see
Come
above us.
on,
You
Sue.
didn't see it, right?
Hey, you guys been celebrating the holidays already over there or what? You having a Christmas party today? I have not seen anything, Sue. And if I did, I wouldn't admit to it. No, I have not seen any flying discs at Gate C-17. Unless you got a new aircraft you're bringing out today that we don't know about.
No.
No, I have not seen anything, Sue. Air Tower, Dwight.
Dwight,
Yes.
what happened to Dave? Did he have to take a break because I called him?
No.
This is Sue from United.
Yes.
There was a disc out there flying around.
There was a what?
A disc?
A disc? Can you hang on 1 second?
Sure, Dwight.
Okay, I'm sorry. What can I do for you now?
All right. I told Dave there was a disc flying outside above Charlie 17, and he thought it was pretty much high. But I'm not high and I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
Someone actually has a picture of it. So if you guys see it out there,
A disc? Like a frisbee?
like a UFO type thing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
They have a picture of it.
How high above Charlie 17?
Well, it was above our tower. So
Uh-huh.
if you happen to see anything,
You know what? I'll keep a peeled eye for that.
all right.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Tower Cab, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave, Roger, at United Agency.
Yeah, Roger.
I got an interesting one for you, Dave. Here. Some of our employees, I don't know if you heard anything about this, some of our pilots on the ground were reporting a UFO sighting at 1,000 feet from the seaside of the airport. Did you guys hear anything about
You
that?
know what? The ramp tower called me, I want to say about 10, 15 minutes ago. We have not seen anything up there.
Okay.
Because she said it was right around gate C-17.
Okay.
But, and since she called, I've been looking, but we have not seen anything.
Okay.
If we do, oh well, I guess,
Well, no, I'm just wondering. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll have to give him 2-7 right.
Yeah, I know. Either that or you guys unveiled a brand new aircraft that I didn't tell anybody about.
I know.
But, no, we have not seen anything, but we will surely keep an eye out, that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
No problems.
Bye.
I gotta cue that.
Ground Gateway 5668, send the penalty box, ready to go to the Northport.
Gateway 5668, you can use Alpha to Northport and use caution for the UFOs.
Alpha the Northport, we'll take a look. United Maintenance 44.
Okay, it's 44. Thank you.
All right.
44 is going around to Northport.
Excellent.
You got Eagle and SkyWest over here coming around this way. He's turning in no factory. You really got no other gate holds.
All right.
Somebody reported a UFO or a flying disc above Charlie Concourse. Seriously.
Excellent.
Yeah. So nobody can
keep my eyes open.
nobody can see it, but use caution.
All right.
And that's pretty much it. Gateway 5668.
5668, go ahead.
Yeah, look out your window. Do you see anything above United's concourse? They actually, believe it or not, they called us and said somebody observed a flying disc about 1,000 feet above the gate Charlie 17. Do you see anything over there?
Not that I can tell.
Okay. Yeah, I thought my job was stressful.
We saw it a half hour ago.
Who saw it?
Whole bunch of us over at the Charlie Concourse.
Really? You guys did? Who's this?
The United Taxi Mechanics. Thought it was a balloon, but we're not sure.
So, I mean, it's pretty obvious when you listen to this audio that they really weren't taking it very seriously. What did you think of it?
Well, I mean, the first correspondence is between a United Airlines supervisor, Sue, and an air traffic controller named Dave. They're sort of going back and forth, and Sue's just reporting what she's being told by people on the ground because she's inside the building and can't see it from her vantage point, but she's getting feedback from the people she's responsible for on the ground. And this, if it is in the air, an object in the air over the airport at 1,000 feet with incoming airplanes, this is a problem.
Establish something like 2,500 flights a day?
Yeah. So this is an issue. This is a safety issue because we don't know, is this thing going to stay in that location? Is it going to get in a flight path? Are the air traffic controllers aware of it? So she's just doing her duty and reporting this to air traffic control, trying to get some answers about what the heck is in the skies 1,600 feet above her gate. Dave responds with, because she says, I'm getting reports of flying saucer, a disc is in the air.
Yeah.
Dave, of course, I mean, most reasonable people would be like, are you guys hitting are you hitting the booze a little early for the holidays? What's going on? That's essentially what he says. And they sort of laugh back and forth a little bit about it, but he's like, no, I'm not seeing anything on the radar, and I can't see it from here. So
yeah, I mean, he completely shut her down. I mean, he's not even looking. I mean,
yeah, it's hard to say. It doesn't seem to be taking it very seriously.
No.
So she calls back a little bit later, not much later, just a little bit later, because she's getting more chatter from people at her gate, and someone's claiming that they now have a photograph of it. So she calls back and gets a hold of another air traffic controller handling inbound traffic, and he says, this is Dwight, and he's like, look, I'm not seeing anything over here. And she's saying, look, I'm not drinking, I'm not high. We have a photograph. This thing is in the sky above my tower. Are you seeing anything? He's like, no, we're not seeing anything over here. It's not on radar. They're not seeing anything. He says, but I will keep an eye out for it. And then there's some additional communications between various people on the ground and incoming or taxiing aircraft that are on the ground, where they're talking about going in that area, and they're mentioning keep an eye out for the UFO. Almost seem not too terribly serious about it, but just mentioning it back and forth. So the very last thing you heard there was one of the people who were on the ground, part of the ground crew, who says, me and several people over here saw it. So we did see it up there. It's gone now. Yeah. May have been a balloon is the last thing you heard there. That might lead us into talk about what is it that these people saw in the sky, and what did FAA say about it. Let's look at some prosaic explanations and see if any of them fit.
I did want to ask you before we jump into that, what about the photographs, videos? I mean, I'm looking at a photograph right now, but I've also heard that none of the photographs have been considered legitimate, or many of them have proved to be hoaxes. Do you know anything on that?
I didn't see anything in the NARCOP report which said that they had valid photos. I just saw that they were able to discount many, if not all of them, as hoaxes. And what they did is they were able to locate the photos online, and what had happened in some cases, they'd been digitally altered. In other cases, they were photos that were stock image photos that had been flipped horizontally, and then they were able to identify those, and then the object inserted into the photograph. Yeah. So, yeah, there's nobody out there with that I'm aware of has released a photograph that I feel comfortable saying is legit.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I was curious about. I mean, some of these, for instance, I'm looking at this one photograph, and all the witnesses that came forward were United Airlines employees, but the photo I'm looking at, it's clearly an American Airlines aircraft in the foreground. And then, I mean, I don't know, don't they all have kind of their own terminal or area at the airport that they go to?
That's right.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I guess it could have been right beside the American Airlines. I don't know, but then it makes me wonder there too. Yeah, these things now, it's so easy to hoax a photograph. It's just so difficult to try and decide which is which. I know there's some that's been proven to be outright hoaxes, like you said, using Shutterstock or something readily available on the internet. Some photograph that's obviously had a UFO added to it or something like that. So
yeah, as an aside here, I just want to take just a break for a second to talk a little bit about air travel. So airlines sometimes have their planes come in, and they'll be at like gate A1 through A10, say. And then their outgoing flights. So if you have like a layover and you're picking up a second flight with the same airline, their outgoing flights sometimes are like in gate Z27.
I know, man. Yeah.
And then you have to book it across like three miles. It's like 3.5 miles between the gates, and you got to book it, and you got to get there in like 5 minutes. So you're running like an Olympic athlete, but you got the gut of a middle-aged man on you. And it's not pretty, but you got to get there, otherwise you're missing your flight. I think, and I'm just saying, I'm not saying we should do this as a law or anything, but just as a social convention, that if you're an old person or a little kid and you're just sort of meandering away in the lane there as people are running trying to get to their flight, I think you shouldn't be prosecuted if you knock a couple of them over. Just saying. I want to throw it out there as a possibility.
It's so funny. One thing, okay, nobody really likes to fly or airports, but I find it entertaining when I have a layover, especially if I have a little time to just wait for my next flight. I find it very entertaining to watch everyone because everyone's always in a hurry.
Yeah.
Everyone in the airport's in a hurry. Everybody.
When I first started flying a lot, I would plan my flights out to where I had lots of time so I wasn't rushed, and I would just hang out in the airport bars. But let me tell you, that gets old quick. And and then I just want to get to where I'm going. And I don't like missing flights, and I've missed more than I care to recount here. But, I don't know. One good thing about COVID, I haven't had to fly a lot, But this hasn't given me opportunities to see balloons or lenticular clouds that have been mistaken for UFOs outside of O'Hara.
Right. Let's look at it now from. So we've got the basic sighting. I mean, there's not a ton of description to this sighting. We have a disc-shaped object over gate C-17 at a very busy O'Hara International Airport. We have several ground crew, a couple of pilots that have come forward, but unidentified in the public mind, have witnessed this object for up to 5 minutes, and then the object ascended very rapidly through the low cloud cover, and witnesses say they were able to see blue sky. In other words, it carved a hole through the clouds, and they were able to see blue sky above the clouds for a few minutes until the clouds closed back in. So what do the skeptics have to say about this sighting?
So the FAA just really dismissed it, and their claim was that it was a weather phenomenon and that it didn't warrant any further investigation. So that's one thing. We'll look at that in a second. The other explanation, the other two explanation, was that it was a top secret military craft.
It's always one of the explanations,
right,
of course.
And the third was that it was a weather balloon. Even one of the people on the ground in the air traffic control communiques that we heard earlier, that was the last thing that was said, might have been a balloon.
Yeah.
So
balloon over the airport, a busy airport like that, highly unlikely.
Well, NARCOP took some time to go over the weather balloon thing and break it down. Most balloons are seen as round from beneath, can hover silently, and could be 20 feet in diameter or more. This is possible, but they strongly argue against that as a possibility. The first problem with the hypothesis is where a weather balloon would come from in the first place. The nearest launch site for weather balloons was in Lincoln, Illinois, about 135 miles to the southwest, with no winds out of the south at only about 4 knots. Both the daily balloon launch from there at 6 o'clock a.m. and the other at 6 o'clock p.m. would have climbed more than 1,900 feet only after about 4 minutes of flight. So that's not possible. Plus, there was no lateral movement of the object while it was sitting there. The wind speed at that elevation at that time, the balloon would have traveled horizontally about 3,600 feet within the time that they viewed it. So it could not have been a balloon. Plus, the speed at which it left the area and going up vertically, the distance that it would have had to travel in order to create that hole in the cloud cover, and the speed at which it had to go for that wasn't something that balloons could do. So I think it's safe we can rule out a balloon. The other thing, however, is a weather phenomena, and this is something which might be possible. The explanation the FAA put out was that it was a combination of a lenticular cloud, lights reflecting off of the cloud from beneath, from the airport, and then a weather phenomenon known as a fall streak hole, or also known as a punch hole cloud. So that was their explanation and why it wasn't picked up on radar. So it fits a lot of on the surface, it fits a lot of the criteria necessary to explain most of what the witness said they saw. However, the witnesses closest to it were sure that it was an object, that it was reflecting light, and that it was metallic, at least the sheen of something metallic.
Right.
Yeah.
I think whenever most of the skeptics chose to tackle the hole through the clouds, as that was the whole, as if that's the crux of the sighting.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, they completely disregard any of the witness statements. They focused on the inconsistency of the size of the craft, right? Because we have witnesses saying it's anywhere from 6 feet to 20 to 40 feet. Well, I think we've already established it's very difficult when you don't know what that object is and it's in the middle of the sky. It's virtually impossible to guess how big this object would be. I mean, between 20 and 40 feet, that's a big discrepancy, but at the same time, I mean, it's nearly impossible. If you have a good idea in your mind how big an object is supposed to be in the sky, like an airplane, yeah, you can probably estimate the altitude and all those other things, or, do a pretty good job of it. But I can almost guarantee that if you put any mundane object, even an airplane, and ask the average person to go out there and look at it and tell you what the altitude of that airplane is and tell me how long the wing is of that aircraft and the altitude, you would also get all kinds of different estimates. I mean, people, that's been proven. People just aren't really good at guessing how large an object is, especially when it's in the sky and you have nothing to show it. So to me, focusing on those discrepancies that means nothing. In other words, that doesn't discredit it or disprove that these witnesses actually saw something, just because there's a lot of discrepancy on how big they say the object is or how high it was floating. And then the second thing that they like to really focus on, that I've seen the skeptics are focusing on, the hole punch through the clouds. They say meteorologists. I looked at a report. It wasn't specifically on this particular sighting, but it is on that phenomenon. And I saw some photographs of aircraft had actually done, the conditions were right, meteorological conditions were right, where aircraft had come through the clouds, and it shows where, you can start seeing, the blue sky under that. But the way the witnesses described it was that it was very crisp, as if this object went straight up through it and the edges were very defined. And I don't see that in any of the other evidence that they're showing. Although the meteorologist said that particular day at the airport, conditions would have been right for one of these holes to appear in the clouds when an aircraft descended through it. But the pictures they're showing are all pretty rough. I mean, you do see blue sky above the clouds in these photographs I'm looking at, but it doesn't match the witness's description of the well-defined, crisp hole in the clouds, as if an object punched through it very quickly.
Yeah, they also discovered that one of the key points of the explanation was that the lights from the airport were reflecting off of a cloud, giving the illusion that it had this metallic sheen. But at that time, the lights had not been turned on. they weren't turned on till well over an hour after the fact, at the earliest. So,
yeah. So, and then too, these people work at this airport every day. I think they would have noticed something out of the ordinary. If it would have been a witness that was just at the airport waiting to catch a flight, it's one thing. But here we have mechanics and ground crew and even a couple of pilots who are seeing this object that I think would recognize something unusual. And also the skeptics focus on the obviously hoaxed photographs. Like you were saying, I looked one up where it shows it shows somebody took a photo off the internet and flipped it so that it looks left to right instead of right to left, and then added a flying saucer to it. I mean, that's always going to happen. I mean, we see fakes of everything, not just UFOs, every day on the internet. That doesn't disprove that these people saw something.
Yeah, so there's one other, which is actually my favorite prosaic explanation for what went on that day, is that there was a United Airlines meth and acid party prior to their shifts starting.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, this would explain why Doug, who was one of the mechanics on the ground, was going, "It keeps moving. It's getting closer. I think it's pink. I can't feel my legs." So,
all right. Now, obviously, a joke there. No, there was none
we
of that
don't know if it was a joke or not. Those people at the Chicago airport are wild.
They're serious. They're serious about their acid and meth parties.
They like to have it. Or
was it a meth and acid?
Well, there was a reason why, Dave, the air traffic control, was picking on Sue a little bit there about having a party a little bit early in the day. I think he knew what was going down over at United.
Yeah.
It's a joke, United. Chill out.
Yeah, he's saying, "Are you high?"
Yeah, are you high? Did you guys start drinking?
I'm wondering,
a little early?
And it could be that he was just wondering if her drugs had kicked in yet because he'd been doing them with her.
Yeah.
Are you high? I'm high. Are you high?
I'm not seeing a UFO, but I'm seeing Bigfoot.
Bigfoot strolling across the tarmac.
He's got wings.
So, at the end of the day, we have a very good UFO sighting here. Is there any physical evidence? Is there anything we can take to science and say, hey, study this. This is a legitimate UFO sighting? No, there's not. There's not a shred of evidence.
We don't, but Dan Aykroyd does. So, Aykroyd, release the stuff.
Release that video.
Release it now. And don't do Blues Brothers. Come on.
Yeah. Well, he is getting a little older. Probably needs a regular paycheck now,
Yeah, so he can fund his next UFO show.
So does Dan Aykroyd actually think his show was shut down by the Men in Black?
I couldn't find out for sure, but the articles I read, which, these people could be making it up. Who knows? I could see him thinking, he seems to have a little bit of a conspiratorial thought process going on in his mind. And who's to say he's wrong? I don't know.
But the story is, if I'm going to understand you correctly, is that he had acquired some video that was going to be released on his television show about UFOs. And so technically, since he acquired this information while he was employed by Sci-Fi Channel, that means they own the property. They own the video, right?
Yeah, they own the footage that he recorded, yeah.
And then the show was canceled. So he can't release it because they own it.
By the Men in Black. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what happened. It couldn't have possibly been that the Sci-Fi Network people were like, there's not enough monsters inside of a lake in any of these episodes that can crawl on land. So it's probably not going to be a winner,
Yeah, I don't necessarily know about the conspiracy theory of any information.
You froze up again.
But it's a pretty interesting sighting nonetheless. No real evidence there. I mean, the FAA drew a fair amount of criticism because they didn't investigate it, nor were they interested in investigating this at all. Many people pointed out that if this was really some type of UFO, it really was an object. That's a very busy airport. Could have caused an airplane crash if it was legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
United Airlines, of course, is not going to say anything. They don't want to come out and start saying, oh, we got to be careful about these UFOs. And then people are going to stop flying United because, like, I'm not flying on the UFO airline. They're a bunch of flakes, you know.
They do meth and acid.
So, I mean, you know, you can see why United Airlines wouldn't necessarily want to come out with any kind of public statement other than, yeah, we had some employees that said they saw something, but, you know, we don't really have a comment on that. The FAA is just, you know, not interested. And, you know, I wonder in today's environment, post-Nimitz, post-Roosevelt encounter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where the government seems to be taking these reports a lot more seriously. I wonder if this sighting would have happened today, how differently the FAA may have reacted. Do you think there would have been an investigation?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think we've made some progress. But
in 2006, yeah. The FAA was well interested.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what do you do? It's a one-off event that is out of this world. So, I mean...
Yeah. Well, and then, you know, back to the radar data, nothing showed up on radar. But, of course, we know these civilian radar systems mostly rely on transponders of aircraft. So it's not totally surprising that, I mean, we're aware of these changes that have been made to civilian aircraft so that they don't show objects that are not aircraft, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people claim that's because the government didn't want civilian air traffic controllers seeing UFOs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're trying to keep it secret. On the other hand, now that every aircraft has transponders, it keeps them from being distracted, and, you know, they can focus on real aircraft in their real airspace. So it doesn't surprise me that this craft, if indeed it is a UFO, didn't show up on the civilian radar.
Yeah, and another point is the weather balloons, those have radar transponders on them as well.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know that I have anything else to add to this incident. What about you? Is there any last thoughts you have on the O'Hare UFO incident?
No, just that Dan Aykroyd needs to release that damn film footage.
Come on, Dan. Ditch the Blues Brothers. Bring out the O'Hare Airport.
Yep.
Video.
I'll watch that.
We want to see.
For sure.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you all for listening. Once again, be sure to check us out on Facebook. Don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen. And if you do check us out on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, all those things, be sure and do the likes and the thumb up and all those kind of things. That really helps grow the show. Don't forget to reach out to a friend and ask them or let them know about Cosmic Sponge. Check out our webpage, cosmicsponge.com. You can look at the web store, find ways to support the show. Our contact information is firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. So Jimmy, you got anything else?
Nope, I'm ready to hit the road.
All right, then. Well, this is Stephen Hawk signing out, and we'll see you next week.
And Jimmy Coe, keep your eyes to the skies and your feet on the ground. We'll catch you next week.
So no weather balloon, huh?
No, I don't think it's weather balloon.
I mean, was it going west whenever the winds were blowing east? I mean, you love the weather balloons.
I do like the weather balloons. I think it explains most things people are seeing. That or birthday balloons that got away.
I mean, how many weather balloons are out there in the world? I mean, come on.
Oh, they release a crap ton of them. Matter of fact, the report mentions how many are released. It was NOAA releases like several every day, thousands every day. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
There's a lot of them.
But I wouldn't be releasing them at O'Hare.
Well, they would if they're having like a meth and acid party and they're having a cake and balloons. You know, somebody could let go of the balloons. Cake balloons.
That's it.
That's what it is. What does a spaceship look like? 89. Well, Doug's 89.
Nice. All right, man. Let's get out of here.
Yep. Later, man. That's all for this week's episode of Cosmic Sponge. Please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find the show. If you have any questions or have a story you'd like to share, you can contact us using our email account at firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. If you'd like to support the show, consider becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/cosmicsponge, where you get access to exclusive content, including our Weird Wonders, news, and stories released every week. To explore everything Cosmic Sponge has to offer, including other ways to support the show, head on over to our website at www.cosmicsponge.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.